Cool. Right, listen, welcome today. Thanks for joining us. I'm delighted to be joined by Dean Curtis with me today to talk to us about diversity in the workplace and to talk about the importance of diversity and how apprenticeships can be one part of the solution. So thanks for joining me today, Dean.
Good to be here, Andy. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Probably great starting point. Just tell us a bit about yourself, Dean, in terms of what you do, the organisation that you work for.
Sure, absolutely. So as Andy's just said, my name's Dean Curtis. I'm Group Managing Director of LexisNexis Risk Solutions, one of 4 divisions of RELX Group. I think we're 12th in the FTSE as of yesterday. We have about 9,000 people in the division, 33,000 in RELX, with talent based all over the world. We're a portfolio of brands that span multiple industries, and our aim really is we provide business customers with innovative technologies, information-based analytics and decision tools and data services, enabling them to solve their problems and make better decisions, stay compliant, reduce risk and improve their operations. So I'm responsible for 2 brands in that portfolio, ICIS, who assist in fair, transparent and efficient trade in energy and petrochemical markets, and also Cirium, a leader in assisting the aviation industry to digitize. Do some things outside of that, sit on the board of a few charities. I'm a trustee of the Mackenzie Dellis Foundation, which is around reporting and best practice for diversity inclusion, and also an advisor to Dial Global, a diverse and inclusive aspirational leaders organisation.
Right. Listen, that's I mean, already what you described there, what you do as a business, I'm there going, crikey, I couldn't do your job, but that's straight off the bat. But I want to dive straight into kind of talking about what we want to discuss today, which is the diversity side of things. So I know it's a big passion of yours. Why is that? Where's that come from? What kind of ignited your passion for diversity and wanting to be involved in the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I guess D&I isn't a nice to have. Right, it's absolutely critical, and what all of the statistics show is that diverse teams perform better. McKinsey report suggested that diversified organisations outperform their competitors. I think it was by something like 36%. But it's essential, and in fact, I would say a human right that everyone is treated fairly, with dignity and respect, and that people are provided equal opportunity, which of course doesn't happen in our world today. It's got better, but probably not fast enough. And so from a leadership perspective, it's about, from all perspectives, about creating an environment where, environment, society and a world where everyone can be the very best version of their authentic self. And the diverse and inclusive teams bring together different views, ideas, opinions, and questions, which are heard and considered, which is the inclusive bit. And as I said, statistics show that outcomes and innovation and performance improve, as well as it being the right thing to do. So it's one of those things where if we all sat down and explain it to our children, if we have children, then you can't really explain why we're not doing it, but somehow the world doesn't do it.
Yeah,
I guess.
And I was going to ask, what are the challenges that organisations or barriers that organisations have built up over time that prevents them having these diverse workforces? So what are the key things that you see that stop diverse workplaces and having diverse teams within organisations?
Yeah, so it's important that we begin to measure diversity more across the different facets of diversity across business. But it's my belief that you do not get diversity, or at least sustainable diversity, without inclusion coming first, and culture is key. And so you can have ratios and you can hire people in for ratios, but that won't be long term unless the right culture is in place where that diverse talent can thrive.
Yeah,
I have a background, as you know, in sport and building some high performance teams in business, and in any walk of life, all high performance cultures have psychological safety at their center of their very being, and that's the inclusion part, where people can say what they truly feel without fear of being judged. And that inclusion piece is absolutely critical. It's the value, it's the cultural value that we put individually and collectively on valuing those diverse perspectives. And that also isn't just about differences in gender or race or sexual orientation, but it's much more than that. It's about difference of thought and opinion and background experiences and beliefs. And that dialogue is the one that opens people up to new approaches, markets, ways of working. And we know that greater diversity, as I mentioned before, in the workforce increases results, profitability and value creation. And I guess that's really the symptoms, but what have the barriers been? And this maybe is quite a long answer, but let's not kid ourselves. There's still so many barriers to diversity, inclusion, equality and belonging in our world and the workplace. We are making progress, but there's so much more we can do. And I would encourage everybody listening to this that we've all got a responsibility there. I mean, if we take one we know the best, really, which is gender, it's historically been harder and in some cases practically impossible for women to succeed in certain corporate environments.
Yeah.
And a great deal of coaching has been provided to try and fix females, but the environment itself has to change.
Yeah.
And if a female, takes a few years out to raise a child, that's less experience in the workplace and a disadvantage. And there's many things that we've put in place as society to help with that: shared parental leave, flexible and remote working, which is one of the benefits of what we've just been through with COVID over the last couple of years, which allow couples together to effectively manage a family together. One of the businesses I lead at the moment with 54% female, 51% at senior leadership +1 level, with over 50 nationalities. And it also happened to be the best performing business. And I guess the same is true with ethnicity. If you look, many businesses in the United States, as an example, are very underrepresented at senior levels with African American talent. And, you go back 6-10 years, those businesses, our businesses, were asking for degrees for roles at certain levels. Yeah. And that population of talent went to university less, and we wonder why we've got this problem. Yeah. And then I guess one of the key areas that I'm absolutely passionate about and leads to, I guess, the point of this discussion is silent exclusion. And apprenticeships have a key role to play here. Silent exclusion, such as socioeconomic status, people from underprivileged backgrounds, young people who have already worked pretty hard to make some tough choices in their life. In some cases, choices tougher than I've ever had to make as a CEO or a leader. Yeah. And I'm not sure what the latest stats are, but I know with COVID they have got worse than the ones I'm about to state. But I know that 2 years ago, the percentage of year 11 pupils in England and Wales who achieve 5 A star to C GCSE grades, including English or Welsh and maths, was 60.3%. Yeah. If you apply a very simple filter to that, such as those that qualify for free school meals, and that percentage pass rate drops from 60.3 to 28.5%. And I encourage people listening to think about that. What sort of world do we live in where that young talent gets discounted and wasted at such an early age? I mean, think of all that potential and innovation and results, which is lost on such a huge scale based on where someone lives, who their parents are, and their start in life, over which they had no control.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, crikey, there's some powerful statistics in there. I suppose that almost feels like, that is a big problem. And you're saying it's right at the start of somebody's life, let alone their potential career. I suppose, how do you begin to unpick that? Because you could pick so many things. We could talk about the fact that, is the system fit for purpose? Is actually how we're appraising somebody's aptitude to achieve their potential in their life measured in the right way? Is it actually the construct of what's within those programs relevant to what they need in order to be able to fulfill a work purpose in the working world in the future? So where do you start to kind of unpick that and make sure that, as you said, someone's not defined by a simple grade in a qualification that may have no bearing on what they do in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people far smarter than me that tried to fix this, but I do think we've all got a responsibility, and particularly me as a leader, I take that responsibility seriously of playing my role in how you fix it. I do believe, Andy, that apprenticeships have a key role to play in the makeup for what our education system doesn't do. Education is massively important. It has huge value, of course, but there are certain things it does that you know, like assessing people on their ability to all pass the same exam, and what that does to conformity and creativity and various different things, is an issue, as is how well and your ability to apply yourself in the education system based on, some cases, disability, socioeconomic status, all the things that we've just spoken about. So, you know, I do believe apprenticeships have a key role to play. Across the businesses that I have the honour of leading, really, we hire people and talent on personal values and behaviours are a key thing.
Yeah.
So you know, that takes away some of that bias, so to speak, of systems away from. I can genuinely say, apart from in certain very limited key roles, I don't believe, of thousands and thousands of people I've ever hired, I don't believe I've ever hired on education. Even first jobbers, you know, you look at the university or the backgrounds they've got, but there's a lot of other things in a person's makeup around how they spend their time, what they do in their life, that may be a better indicator of their talent and their ability to perform. And you know, I feel that that's one way of doing it. We need to take the bias out of talent acquisition. We do some of that with CVs, how the language we use in job descriptions, even still in gender is an example. Really, really hard to get female technologists in certain areas in sales. It's tough. And, you know, we need to do everything we can to level the playing field. The good thing I like about the thought of apprenticeships is how it digs deeper into untapped talent pools.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key here. So, you know, within LexisNexis Risk Solutions, we've begun a sales apprenticeship program where we can tap into that underutilized and often underprivileged talent. You know, I work with some exceptional leaders today, sales leaders who have come from extremely difficult situations, war children who were carried across borders, people, the families of 9 that were brought up in a 1-bedroom apartment, slept on the floor, and they've gone on to do truly remarkable things in their life, and they're exceptional leaders, and their background and journey is their absolute strength. And at the time, a lot of people like that, to whatever degree on that spectrum of underprivilege, don't believe that's the case. And as you start to move forward, and, you know, and if I look at high performing people in any walk of life, they're people that take nothing for granted. They work hard, they're curious, they've got a thirst for learning, they see every bit of opportunity, never feel they're above the menial tasks and brilliant basics, high degrees of resilience and gratitude every day. And these are the skills that create that drive and personal development, and are excellent traits for salespeople. You know, over someone more privileged sometimes. I think it was Muhammad Ali said, it's really hard to get up early in the morning and run when you're wearing silk pajamas. And there's some truth to that.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I think, that word privilege is a word that you hear, you know, talked about a lot and sort of challenged a lot when it comes to the values that people, will bring to work and the authentic selves they'll bring to work to apply themselves in their kind of careers. You talked about personal values earlier on, actually, is, you know, how you profile. I'd be interested to know what are those personal values that you look for, or that you've applied into profiling talent into the business.
I'll be giving away all the trade secrets. It's better when the candidates don't know. But the first thing is passion.
Yeah.
You know, in sales or in anything you do, whether you're in sales or whatever you do in life, life is short, and you've got to love what you do.
Yeah.
And those days, whether you're a good performer or not, we all have those awful days that you wake up and it's tough.
Yeah.
And it's that passion that gets you through. And I don't believe you can lie to other people, and I don't believe you can lie to yourself. When you see someone who fundamentally believes in the business or the organization they represent, their eyes are glinting, and it's just, so passion is a key one. How much do they want to be part of the family and really believe in what we're trying to achieve? And I mean,
it's the Eddie Jones, you got to love the grind that he talks about on the High Performance podcast, right? You've got to have that passion to kind of deal with the grind of, the hard work that goes into the success that's at the end of it.
Absolutely. And that's where elite performance is what's the word? It's glamorized. You see the great moments, the lifting of the trophy, the kick, the throw, the sales contract that comes back. But behind that is all of that grind and the work in the shadows. And my personal belief, and studied human performance for a number of years, is the best elite performers are pretty boring.
Yeah.
And they've got a very high boredom threshold to continually do the mundane things consistently better each and every single day in whatever field. Roger Federer at tennis, Lionel Messi in football, Tim Peake as an astronaut, wherever you go. That's what that's what separates the elite from, and everybody can do it. I believe that, which is the point. This is why things like this apprenticeships and talent pools, everybody has the ability to do that. Just very few are willing. Yeah.
Okay. So passion's a big one for you. What other sort of things, personal values, do you hold cadence with?
Curiosity. I believe every high performer has high degrees of curiosity, even self-curiosity. How do I learn and develop myself? The responsibility is always with you.
Yeah.
And the best performers have a level of curiosity in most of the functions that I lead, technology, sales, editorial, analytics. It's all about finding out more and asking questions. Yeah. So curiosity, I think, is a massive high performing trait. The ability to be able to function as part of a team.
Yeah.
Even in solo roles, I think is key. We don't achieve anything together, and it's very, very hard to learn and develop yourself. If we go on a journey together as an organization and as a team, individually and collectively, we stand a better chance of fulfilling our potential. And so teamwork is another.
Good stuff. Well, if I'm an apprentice, I'm sat there going, right, I'm ticking off the things Dean's looking for. I'm sort of lining myself up, and I'm kind of making myself known to him. So, okay, so there's really interesting things there, talking about, say, sort of identifying the innate potential in people. Let's get the other end of the spectrum, right? So if you're a manager sat in an organization now and you're facing up to these challenges, you're looking at a team that lacks diversity, lacks that creativity, lacks the different ideas and opinions around the table. How do you start that change? And then how do you make sure that you're equipped to support that talent that's going to come through your organization, given that it might look by its background and its history very different from kind of what's come before? Because understanding how to support that individual against the sort of challenges they may have had historically, and then coming to the workplace, that might seem scary to some people. So what insight can you give us around that?
I mean, that is a huge question in itself, because that's the fundamental, I guess, answer to inclusion and psychologically safe environments, that everything tells us the most psychologically safe environments are the highest performing. And so I think the first thing is understanding ourselves. So we all have a bias.
Yeah.
And that's a bias about people, how we live our lives, our fundamental views, and being open first to just listen and understand somebody else's point of view, and taking the time. And it's taking the time that's hard, because in a fast-paced business environment where we've all got stuff to do, understanding people is a very big commitment of time, and you almost have to take a step back to be able to take a step forward.
Yeah.
And there's a very powerful story there, actually, with I don't know if you ever heard it, about the South African rugby team before the World Cup, a few years before. Well, Sia Khaleesi, who was the first black captain of South African rugby team that went on to win the tournament. When they first got together, and the business equivalent is similar, you know, the first thing would be, right, let's get out on the training pitch, let's start to make it happen. They spent 2 days in a room getting to know each other, and they each had to bring in 6 pictures of themselves that, or not of themselves, but that reflected their life. And the winger Mapimpi bought 6 pictures of himself.
Right.
And the big, you know, kind of rugby guys were making fun of him, and they went around the room and you explained the pictures, and it got to him, and he said, you know, I lost my mother when I was 4. My sister brought me up. I lost her when I was 12. My brother got electrocuted stealing cable from a train line. I have no family. He doesn't even have any pictures of his family. And in the South African rugby shirts, the numbers, they had pictures of the people they were representing that were meaningful for them. He had no pictures of his family.
Right.
Just taking, it's a simple story, but just taking the time to create the environment for that to happen,
yeah,
was so impactful for the team, because he scored the try in the final against England. You speak to any of that team and they believe that final was won in a meeting room 3 or 4 years before,
yeah,
where that happened, because we could have played. How well do we understand truly the people we're working with?
Yeah.
And so from a manager or leader's perspective, create opportunities for that to happen. Create opportunities where people can dream and think outside the box, and reward outlandish behavior or thoughts. Where, you know, let's break the mold. What if we actually did that? What would happen if we broke the rules of the industry we're in today? Not regulation, but the rules of the game that we're playing. What would that mean?
Yeah.
And it's very, very hard as manager to take the time to create an environment for that to happen. But I think from an inclusion perspective, that's the biggest thing. And that has to be there first, because you can go and hire diverse talent, but unless the culture is one that's conducive for that talent to be able to perform and be their best authentic self. I send everybody a note when they join this organization to say, we've hired you for who you are, don't fit in.
Yeah.
And it's natural. You come in and think, well, what, you know, and you're looking around and we want to conform. And education teaches us that, by the way.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. You want people to be themselves.
Yeah, crikey, that's, yeah, it's so true as well. It's the you know, fit the brand, you know, sort of, you know, dress the same, act in the same way. It's sort of, it squeezes that individuality and uniqueness out of people that can be that 1% difference in terms of how they see something, or how they might choose to do something, or how they might challenge the way things have been done historically. So yeah, I definitely think that's true. I mean, it's really interesting. So I suppose the big question for me is, you know, graduates obviously, you know, have been a legacy of how organizations have kind of looked to develop talent. Apprenticeships is this thing that's been around for ages. It's come into kind of a new world in the kind of last few years, so to speak. So do you see the kind of the world of the future being an either or for apprentices or graduates, or do you think it's an also and how does that reflect into addressing this ongoing need to improve as organizations to become more diverse and inclusive workplaces?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I haven't got a degree, and in my portfolio of the 6 companies, 3 of the MDs don't have degrees.
Yeah.
My story was, I was applying for university and I got one of 3 A-level leavers places at Rothschilds. And I was able to spend a year and a half, 2 years, go around the entire bank, work in treasury, private clients, asset management. And I was fortunate that at 19 years old, I knew a bank better than some people that had worked in a bank 30 or 40 years, which shows the power of something like an apprenticeship scheme.
Yeah, you're doing an apprenticeship by experience, if not by actual title.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was exactly that. And it's been, those sorts of experiences have been very underutilized in the white collar world. And I think there's a massive value based on the qualities and the potential that we've just spoken about. I believe degrees have significant value. Certain jobs you need a degree for, a teacher, a lawyer, I get that. But there is a conformity that people have to go to university to get on in the world. And I think that that's a shame and a waste of experience at a particular point in life if people's heart and passion are not in it. If people's are, you know, people are and they want the experience and it's going to progress them, then so I think it's both.
Yeah.
What I would say though is that the balance between the two has to change.
Yeah.
I see a lot of graduates that come out and have worked really, really hard to get their degree, have high levels of student debt, that almost have an expectation of what the world's going to deliver them at that point in time, speaking bluntly, in terms of salary, how hard they need to work. And I've worked with graduate programs on Pareto, this, for a number of years, 15 years plus in this space. And I do see in certain places the succession rates reducing based on that level of expectation. And, in certain fields like sales, where resilience and hunger and gratitude and desire are fundamental qualities to doing the job, because it is the hardest job in the business. People are telling you to go away all of the time and ignoring you. You're talking to people you don't know before. It's not an easy job.
Yeah.
And you need those qualities, and you need to be fully invested in it, and you need to be patient. And there's no quick way. The best sales leaders and commercial leaders in the world, most of them have done the ground level cold calling, which is the hardest thing you can do. And once you can do that well, you can do anything. Manage global accounts, but there's no short way.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's the thing, is I said it's systemic change. It's changing culture and attitudes so that it has the opportunity to achieve its potential, and this talent has the opportunity to come into and thrive within organizations like yours, I suppose. So and given your passion for this subject, given your mission, I suppose, really for kind of taking this and making sure that more people, as you say, don't adopt it because there's a need to, or to kind of tick a box, somewhere, but actually because you said it's a basic human right. What's your intention for how Apprenticeships is going to be part of this journey moving forward for your business? How are you going to utilize that to help increase the diversity and inclusivity of the culture that you're fostering?
Yeah, well, we've been working hard on the culture anyway, because I think the culture needs to be right for diverse people to come into the organization and thrive. So all of our managers have had get inclusion training and bias. We've got 34 ERGs, employee resource groups, that employees can relate to. Within the individual brands, we have diversity and inclusion committees. We run regular sessions and updates. We have forums which have been really powerful, particularly after George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, courageous conversations where employees can, kind of share experiences. And, I think I'm quite a worldly guy, but I some of the stuff I hear really surprises me. We had a session in the United States, and there was 400 or 500 people on the call, and different people were brave enough, really brilliantly shared experiences where they were talking about how they feel day to day, and that if they're traveling to a certain sales meeting, going through certain states, their partner would fill their car up with diesel or gas so that they don't have to stop in certain places based on the color of their skin. And that's today. And I don't want any friend of mine, anybody in the world, or certainly people I work with, to experience that.
Yeah.
And so creating a fair and just society where people can thrive, I think, is important. And it's a shame in certain cases, after all of this time and how far we think we're advanced as mankind, that we still having these conversations, frankly. Yeah. And it's not easy, because the easy thing to do where it's a sensitive topic, and I would encourage anybody to do this, is, I probably myself say things that are wrong. It's not through any intent. No. And I want people to tell me if I did, but not necessarily hold that against me. And what happens with these sensitive issues is that people remain quiet and they don't have the conversation. And I think there needs to be a level of everybody assuming good intent and courage and bravery, which is also a high performing trait. Yeah. The courage to be uncomfortable, which is where growth happens. And I think, if we all approached it like that with good intent, we would get somewhere faster. So the first thing is, let's create an environment where this diverse talent can come in and Then the second is tap into areas of diverse talent and create the right conditions for that talent to succeed. So we'll do that by, first of all, a recruitment process that digs into things like behaviours and that we spoke about, and then working with yourself and the sales academy and things that we have here to bring talent in and give them the right training together and not in any type of isolation, so to speak, so that there is fairness and equality through that. And the only part of fairness that it won't have is there's certain underrepresented groups that need the wind on their back for a while. As a white, middle-aged Anglo-Saxon male, I've been more fortunate than I think I've been.
Yeah.
And there are certain groups like with gender, we have a female Ignite and Accelerate program in Risk, which it looks at high potential females and gives them an element of coaching and almost a kind of a rocket booster to develop their careers, where it's been harder in the past. And it's the same for people that have underprivileged socioeconomic status, and that's the plan with the program that we're running at the moment.
Yeah, that it's really interesting, because I think, again, people will naturally hear the words diversity and inclusivity, and they'll immediately go to a particular sort of profile of what that means to them. And it might be gender, it might be race. Probably, as you talked about, socioeconomic is probably one of the ones that people don't think as being really, really prevalent, but it's such a relevant area amongst all of those groups that probably is most at risk of being overlooked. And as you say, what we're effectively doing is saying is that where you were born, who your parents were, and circumstances you had no control over can dictate the entire trajectory of your life moving forward. How do just on that very quickly? So, what's your view on how effectively the kind of the information and the support is available to people from maybe less privileged backgrounds, different sort of socio-economic backgrounds, to understand pathways to get sort of into a career and to get that opportunity to kind of learn skills that can kind of give them skills and purpose for the workplace?
I think that's the tough piece. It's people don't understand what the art of the possible is when you're in that position.
Yeah.
And I think that it's our job, all of our jobs, the stuff you're doing at Pareto, what we're doing at Risk. There's a brilliant government apprenticeship levy available. Most companies don't use it.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and the phrase I use internally is we've taken the stairs up and we've got a responsibility to send the elevator down for others. And I genuinely believe that we all have an obligation to do that. And so obviously that's what we're trying to do. There's no easy answer. And I do think that it's at that level where, as soon as you see people that have come from where you've come from and achieved wonderful things, it provides hope, possibility, and confidence, where everything becomes so much more achievable.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do is bring people through programs like this to show a level of eminence where people don't feel excluded, they don't feel different, and they believe in themselves and can achieve the art of the possible. And when that doesn't happen, the reverse is true, and people take very bad paths in life. Yeah. And that's not what we want.
Well, yeah, and I think again, it's these stories you hear. You ran the story you said earlier on about the South African rugby team. It's being able to find those stories to be able to inform and give these people. I'd say hope sounds slightly slightly panicked, but to give them an understanding that there's several ways, there's lots of different pathways to achieve your potential within your career. And I think sometimes if you're sat there from a certain background with a certain sort of circumstance in life, if you see people around you who you can't relate to, and if you don't see those people and those stories, you don't hear those stories of how people have got to where they've got to in their lives that you feel you can relate to, it's very easy then to kind of connect yourselves to a different narrative and end up on a very different path in life that isn't necessarily where you want to be. So it's how you make that more known to people that need to hear those things, by making those stories more visible.
And what's really weird is the barriers and objections at that time. When the people that succeed, those things then become their strength. You know, that hard journey that someone's traveled, that's steeper than someone else potentially, absolutely becomes their strength when they are in the place they need to be and deserve to be. And so it's some of it is just making sure that people believe that.
One more area I want to kind of touch on with you very quickly, Dean, if you're okay with it, which is, I suppose apprentices has gone through a long journey over the years, right? Apprenticeships and what they are and what they serve and the skills they can help to develop for the workforce. And obviously the new programs have been designed to help equip skills into the workforce of the future, if you like. One thing I suppose that sometimes has a bit of a stigma around apprenticeships is the ability to use the word sort of slightly cautiously, maybe sort of take advantage of or capitalize on apprentices and sort of what you can expect of them and what you can get away with. You know, the old analogy of if you're coming as an apprentice, you can pay that person a menial amount of money because the perception is they're right at that lowest point in your organization. What's your view on that in terms of how an organization might be perceiving that talent and recognizing that talent even at the entry point into their business?
So my view there is, as an apprentice, look at what the business is investing back in you, and that shows the signals to that. You know, so what are the training programs in place? It's a big investment for Rothschilds for me, as I mentioned before. You know, I'm going around the business for 18 months, probably not contributing as much as I could or should. You know,
I'm sure you contribute to the bit, Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of business output, you know, let me on a desk, here's a phone, start calling some customers, do what you're doing, or whatever it is. And it wasn't about that. And it's that investment up front in training and development. You know, we're in a market where everyone can probably move jobs and get more money and do other things. But that's not the point, is it? You know, it's, are you connected to that purpose? And have you got a development path and a stretch personally where you are working around excellent people, and they're providing a level of eminence for you to get better personally? And that includes me. That's a big thing for me. The people I work for and with are a big part of my life. I spend a lot of time here. I want to be inspired. I want to develop still. And if I was an apprentice, that's what I would look for, is not, you know, we have salary reviews and we make sure that everybody is paid fairly because of equitable pay. It would be pointless if we change pay structures and things to do an apprenticeship program, because it would go against the very nature of what we're trying to achieve here. So for me, if I was an apprentice, I'd look at the upfront investment and development of what a company is willing to put into me. And my own belief is, if we do that as a company, it provides a sense of loyalty to the apprentice that will want to go on and repay that in their career with the organization.
Definitely. I think you say it's the equation of, you know, expectations an organization has of an apprentice and from an apprentice, versus the time and commitment they're putting into that person to just have that opportunity to learn. And like you talked about with your own personal example, that investment of time they gave you to learn, you know, it enables you to develop the knowledge and the skills you need to then start to, you know, contribute and add value, with real purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. We do that across the organization for everyone. So on a Wednesday morning, there are no meetings. We call it pause for performance. If we're serious about high performance, when you talk about people, have you done this? You know, what are you learning about here? The first answer you get is, I'm too busy. So in the organizations, there's no meetings on a Wednesday morning. It's for people's personal development. It might be reading subject matter on the industry, external training courses. That's for everybody. And if you're serious about performance and development, then that's what you need to do. And do you know what? Business world is not very good at this. Sport is better. But if you do focus on the performance, the results take care of themselves.
That's why you hear football managers always talking about how their team perform rather than whether they won or lost, right? Because ultimately the performance will affect the result 9 times out of 10 in a game. So focusing on, we won, doesn't necessarily reflect what whether they did the basics well or not.
Well, you wouldn't tell your children they need to pass an exam. And that's the business equivalent.
No, definitely. If you could, final question for me, if you could, if there was one thing that you had the power to change or improve with apprenticeships towards helping this kind of mission, which we all need to be on, of becoming more inclusive and more diverse in our workplaces, what would you change? Whether it be something about how the system works, whether it be about how the messaging cascades down to the people who need to hear it, or how businesses, utilize it. What would be the one thing that you would do differently or improve upon?
I'd probably almost make it, certainly in larger corporates, a mandatory obligation to run something, do something, or consider it to a certain level and population.
Yeah,
I think that fortunately, leaders are speaking, like we are now, a lot more openly about these kind of social issues that 10 years ago it was not the done thing.
Yeah,
and I feel that corporates have a big responsibility to society, which we're starting to see now with ESG and various other things. And therefore, I think that this should form part of that, the talent, the community, the education, the development of people for the longer term. We work in some very forward-thinking areas where talent is valuable, but also hard to get. Data science, analytics, technology, sophisticated workflow sales, and our job is to farm and nurture and create the talent to make sure that our industries continue to do the things that they need to do to make our world better and solve the problems that we face today.
Yeah, definitely. And you say it's a journey, right? So I think it's about businesses buying into how critical this is, the benefits which you shared at the beginning, and you said, and recognizing that this is something which is a basic right for everyone to have, the opportunity to realize their potential in their careers, and how this can be, one way of doing it. If people want to learn more about some of the bodies that you're part of, because you mentioned some of the organizations that you kind of sit on, if people want to learn a bit more about that, where can they find out more about those organizations?
We can look me up on LinkedIn, Dean Curtis. I think it's Dean A. Curtis is the LinkedIn kind of handle. Dialglobal.org, I think, is the website for diverse, inclusive, and aspirational leaders. Mackenzie Dellis Foundation, we're publishing a report in the next month or so that has some good statistics from top 68, 70 CEOs in the UK, where we look at the measurables around the 10 facets of D&I, and there's also some really good stuff there around case studies of what's worked in different areas. And so real practical advice. It's, the first part is awareness and understanding. The next part is what we're actually going to do about it. And as I said, I think everybody listening to this has some form of personal responsibility there. Yeah,
definitely. So it's not about it's acting with purpose, I suppose, rather than sort of just feeling like, oh, I should do something there because I don't want to look like I'm not ticking that box or seem to be having some kind of a plan for it. But it's actually understanding the context to then think about what does that mean to our organization and what do we do with it.
Absolutely. And if you're a young person that thinks they have the qualities and has a strong passion for the type of business that we are at RELX and LexisNexis Risk, please get in touch, and we'd love to hear from you.
Cool. Free recruitment plug at the end there, Dean. I'll allow you that one. So listen, thanks very much for your time today. Really interesting to hear your insight on these things, and lots of food for thought, people listening today, I hope. And whilst it's not the only solution, hopefully, apprenticeships is part of the journey that you've got your business on, and definitely something other organizations should look at.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Andy. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for your time.
See you soon. Bye.
Cheers, mate.